Hello, I'm Elisa. This is about my internship at the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center in Idaho Falls. And this is from spring 2025. So first of all, applying to the internship, I was used to just calling and emailing, but actually the best way to get in here was to go on their website and fill out their volunteer application, print it off, bring it in person. I had called ahead of time and they said they would call me back. They never did. But when I found this application, it's right on that drop menu and at the bottom of the volunteer page. After I had brought that in, I got in right away. So that's the way to do it. This is what I generally did every day. So we worked with clients, we did advocacy outside the office, and also really importantly, we did paperwork. So with our clients, every new person, we do an intake with them. And from there, we kind of figure out what they need and proceed that way. A lot of people, they just want to join groups. And those support groups is where psychoeducation comes in, where we teach them about healthy relationships, mental health stuff, not counseling, just information. Also, most people who come in, they want to do a civil protection order against their abuser. So that's a legal document that we help them fill out. We also can give them referrals to other places for other needs that we can't fulfill. And really importantly, we do follow-ups. We call them once in a while to see how they're doing with like court proceedings or with their like coping and everything like that, or if we haven't seen them in groups for a while. Advocacy. This is especially a lot in the courtrooms. There is someone from the office there every day at both the civil court and the criminal courts. We just keep track of the outcomes of those different things, like if a CPO, a civil protection order, is granted, how sentencings go for our clients' offenders, stuff like that. We can also be asked to go and support them in other offices, like going to their divorce attorneys with them. We have a crisis line, so after hours, we help people who call find resources that they need if they need to leave or if they just need to vent. We can set up appointments for our office, or we often have to schedule forensic interviews and sexual assault exams for people during the crisis line. And with that, we can also meet them out in the hospitals and we meet them in the office and kind of guide them through that process. People who have a crime committed against them, we help them fill out the crime victims compensation. That's so there are funds from the state of Idaho that help pay for their mental health or medical bills after a crime. And lastly, paperwork. That's really important for continuity of care. And you also have to be careful with your files so that it remains confidential. It stays in the office, has to get filed correctly. There's also different paperwork that we do that we end up sharing with law enforcement that has to be done really well. We also print off court records that we sometimes include in files. And we have a running Google Doc of a resource list so that we can give referrals to people really quickly. Okay, how I benefited the DVSAC. So I tried to just be very open, willing, friendly, had a lot of initiative so that I could just jump in and do whatever they needed me to do, even little stuff. That was really important for gaining their trust and gaining competency because there was like no training. There's no structure to the training, no onboarding. And so I was really just lost and floundering. So I just had to kind of invent my own training that way. And also, I ended up just being so helpful that I worked twice as many hours as I needed to. And they really relied on me, and I loved being able to do the work. So, based kind of on that, when I was leaving, I left them with an 11-page manual of all the stuff that I learned for the next intern or new person that they need. So, this intern binder was a project from just taking good notes and asking questions while I was trying to learn all the things. And I also included lessons that I made and how to do paperwork and different flow charts, information about the crisis line. So that's also what I did to benefit the DVSAC. How it benefited me was really great. The biggest thing that I was learning about was the legal system and law enforcement. That was a big learning curve for me. Um, and it was hard to understand at first, but ended up being very valuable and important for my work. I also learned coping strategies and also that I can cope with a career like this. That's really important for my future. So I'm really grateful that I could learn that there. I also learned through bad examples about poor management and work dynamics, just because there were a couple of people who had big egos that would get in the way and like poor communication sometimes. And my intern supervisor was kind of mentally retired already, so she wasn't very supportive. And so that's unfortunate, but also a good realistic learning experience I had to get. But even despite all that, I did love basically everybody I worked with. And so I made really good friends there and had a lot of fun, and also made good connections for future career prospects in the area. A really vital class for this type of internship was the helping relationship. That's where I learned a lot of skills for like listening well and asking the right questions and reflecting and just being empathetic and attentive to people. It's also the only class where I learned how to do an intake, which I did all the time in this internship. Because people don't talk concisely, but when you write paperwork, it has to be concise and understandable. And so that's an art form that you have to learn for intakes. Another class that was really important to me was parent education. This was another hands-on class where we practiced group facilitation, and also we really practiced turning academic writing into something that was understandable and applicable to people who aren't used to science jargon. And so that was really, really important for making sure that the groups went well and that people could actually learn the stuff that they needed to for their own well-being. An important point that I learned in this class too from my professor is that since these kind of educational group support classes are often court ordered, not everybody wants to be there. So it's good to be a little bit prepared for that and still maintain like a respectful, like being respectful to the people, even if they don't want to be there. That's really important for professional skills. Um, but also just that you find ways to be engaging and try to reach them at whatever level they're willing to receive. These were other classes that were really important, especially like the theory classes. Family theories, dynamics, social psych, abnormal psych, family stress and coping in marriage, where it talks about like different kinds of relationships, how they impact people, how family of origin impacts you, mental health stuff, and like social dynamics for the people you work with and for the coworkers you work with too. And a lot of coping stuff that was important. Drugs often came up too, so that was good to know just to stay on top of how it is in the real world. But um, child welfare services, that's where I learned how to write assessments. So that was important for paperwork. And we listened to a podcast every week about social workers sharing their self-care stuff and also their um, niche expertise about different child problems in the world, like juvenile delinquents and whatever stuff. So that was a really good rundown of things that I encountered in the work. So that was good. Ethics is just because you want to stay within your scope of competency. You can't be a counselor, you are just a helper. And family community relations is because the DVSAC is a nonprofit. Would I recommend the DVSAC as an internship opportunity? It's complicated. So even though I ended up loving it, the beginning was really rough with the lack of training and with the office drama and with my supervisor being already mentally retired. However, it was still a really good experience. I met amazing people. I helped with amazing people, and I just really loved the work. And so it was exactly the kind of internship that I wanted because it gave me hands-on experience. It taught me skills I needed for my future career and also taught me that I can do my future career. So that was really, really good and what I was looking for in an internship. If you are still interested in this mixed bag of an internship, mostly you should just fill out the application online and bring it in the office. But our assistant director, the internship supervisor is Joanne Hess, and the social worker who was asked to train me, that is Tony Wood. You can email them, but if you want to get an internship, mostly just bring in the application. Thank you.